The reason that they can't win this debate today is because they've completely mixed up the difference between social validation and criticism, which is the first thing that I want to address. I want to note, though, very specifically that Aaron really doesn't have specifically big impacts compared to the ones that we have. The best that he gets to explaining, like, how your life might be worse is maybe now you don't get some sort of utility because people don't notice you do some sort of good act. But I think if you just immediately weigh this up to the huge harms that shouldn't even exist because people won't actually judge you for them, like taking a job that you don't like having a child, like doing drugs, like not all drug addicts think that if you don't take drugs with them that you're a terrible person. These are all things that exist in your mind. Okay, let's first deal with his kind of case or like framing. Our social validation basically works in the same way as criticism. A few reasons why I don't think this is necessarily true. First off is because we already give you good reasons from Fiona about why this is something that is much more interpretive. Because no one tells you that I socially validate you, but they do tell you that you're being an a-hole. That's a form of criticism. I mean, like right there, one being verbal and one not being verbal is a very clear distinction between how they actually impact you. Because on one hand, social validation is you thinking of the look you got after maybe eating a bag of M&Ms at a gym is perceived as you not getting social validation. These are things that exist in your mind and as a result manifest in a lot of really incredibly weird ways that aren't distinct from what like the moral standard actually wants you to do. The problem is that people don't know what the moral standard is. They perceive what they think the moral standard is and they do something completely different. It controls your life. This is incredibly harmful. But second, it's also much more overbearing. Like, Aaron doesn't deal with the fact that it's on a much higher scale, the fact that everybody around you has this sort of equal weight on the ability to change your life, even though they don't necessarily do, and when they might not necessarily actually care. I think on that level, the social validation is much more harmful and acts on a much bigger scale than the specific criticisms that you might get from a friend or family member. But also, social validations aren't usually things that are friend-breaking, for example. Like, criticisms can be. They're usually something that is specifically a very harmful thing to a relationship that you might have with a person, but we already explained to you why social validation doesn't really exist in that same sort of perspective from Fiona to literally just no response. But I think finally, a last distinction is that it's just like the first thought that you have. Note that criticism is always going to be something that it comes after. You know, you get criticism and you improve upon it. But here, you're just trying to improve on some arbitrary thing that you think is going to exist. There's so much preemption, it just clouds your mind. Then he also explains in the bulk of his case that pretty much just all good deeds go away. I'm gonna first destroy this case by saying why the shared moral standard doesn't work. And I think at POY I already told you, like, things just like the law just exists that prevents you from doing incredibly selfish acts. But also, like, let's take his example about parenting. And he explains that this is a form of social validation. I really don't think it is. I think this is about you being scared of a punishment and weighing that up in your own mind and not doing it as a result. Because you might want to steal all the candy from a kid, but you don't do that because you think like your parents are going to be disappointed in you. You don't do it because your parents might hit you, because your parents might take your iPad away. These are the punishments that set the moral standard as well. This leads me on to the bulk of his case then about why all things don't just go away. And the reason is there are a lot of other reasons for why good deeds can come from. First off is there doesn't even need to be a reason. I mean, take for example putting away shopping carts. It could be a completely empty car park, but you do it anyways. Why? Because it doesn't really bring you that much harm. It is a good deed, but it's something that you don't feel that is particularly negative. The only way that Aaron is able to prove that good things just go away is by proving that good things are hated by everyone and have an extreme harm on everyone that does it. If we're even just able to prove that good deeds don't have a specific harm on a person, it's just kind of neutral, it's just just something random that you decide to do or doesn't particularly harm you, then I think we can already prove that this is mitigated significantly. But also, good deeds can come from other things, because social validation isn't the only way that you do a good thing. It could also be your religion. I mean, like, religion doesn't have to be something that is socially validated. It's just something that you believe exists as what you're supposed to do. Like, God just tells you that this is something that is supposed to do. You're not seeking validation from God. You're just following in his footsteps. That's not something that is you expect other people to believe in you as well. There's lots of other things that can affect, like, how you want to do something that is necessarily also something that is good. But I think what the real harm here is that Aaron's proposal is that people only do good things when you have, or when you perceive that you might get social validation for it. And I think this has led to the rise of a huge amount of really weird stuff, like people giving out iPhones, but they only do it if they're on video. The problem with this case, even if you take them at their best, is all the good things go away the moment that there isn't another person watching, or you don't think that another person is watching. I'll take that point. I think they might do it, but they also are a lot of other reasons why they could make a bad decision. The way we weighed it up is that you in your own mind are probably going to make more better decisions than you would on your side of the house. And we already explained to you that there are huge, large, harmful impacts that occur as a result of social validation, which kind of just renders all the benefits that you get significantly moot. Finally then, he kind of does this thing about, like, your groups of friends being able to self-improve on each other. I think this compounds upon for the exact wrong reasons, because you don't necessarily know, like, what the problem is. You all might just be perceiving that we all hate a certain thing, but nobody really cares about it. Since it's not talked, this is an incredible problem. It needs to be verbal, like criticism, but it isn't. And I think also then a unique harm that arises is that you might start to blame your friends, because self-improvement, or like ability to do, like, be a better person, is quite an important clash in this debate. And I feel like it's important to note here that if it's just you, you can only blame yourself, and you can improve upon that. You can note that, oh yeah, I made a decision that was bad. But if you look back on your past decisions and you just feel like, oh yeah, I was just doing this to get social validation at the time, this isn't a problem that I necessarily need to fix, I think that is something that is particularly harmful and actually hinders your ability to do good acts, because you just think that these were things that your friends wouldn't have wanted you to do, or you think that you would have got less validation. Finally then, on like Aaron just saying we didn't care about the small decisions. Like we said, it's the big decisions are really, really harmful, but we also said that small decisions, just like trying to be a funnier person, can also be specifically harmful. I think we can win on both sides, because we proved to you that, like, the life dictation that it has for small things is also harmful. So at the end of the day, what do you believe? One, you should probably believe that Aaron's case hasn't really been able to distinguish the difference between social validation and criticism, and the impacts of that are completely different. So you shouldn't buy most of the impacts that you have, and you should buy that most people's lives are going to be much more coerced, most people's lives are going to be much more dictated, and high-level impacting exists on our side.